This is going to be our lesson over community interactions or ecological relationships. A limiting factor in a ecosystem is going to be any factor, abiotic or biotic, that's going to restrict the existence. So the amount of water. If there's not enough water, they're going to have to compete for water. Amount of food, temperature. Populations can only get so big based on the amount of water, the amount of food, shelter, all of those factors that's available. The temperature might also limit a population's growth. Predation is our first type of relationship. This is where one organism actually hunts and consumes another organism. The predator's doing the eating and the prey gets eaten. So we have a fox eating a rabbit, and that's an example of predation. And in predation, it's usually kind of an immediate, the predator kills the prey to eat it. Part of it or all of it, the predator is killing the prey to eat it. So we have in this example, we have a bear eating a salmon or a sea otter eating a sea urchin. Competition is another type of relationship, and this is when when more than one organism is using a resource at the same time. They might be fighting for food, they might be water, space, light, in the case of plants. All of those things, mates is another good example, all of those things are resources that organisms need to survive and reproduce. And when those are limited, they're going to compete for them. And the more limited they are, the more competition there is. During times of abundance, there's less competition and populations tend to increase. Here we have an example of competition. All of these organisms are competing for the limited resource, which is water in this case. Our third type that we're going to talk about, or third relationship we're going to talk about, is our symbiotic relationships. And a symbiotic relationship is simply a relationship that exists between two or more species living together. And this is a close relationship. And the relationship could be good or it could be bad. But one organism is going to benefit from this, and then the other organism, it kind of depends on the type of relationship. For example, in mutualism, they both benefit. Commensalism, one benefits but the other doesn't. And then parasitism, one benefits but one is harmed. Okay, in mutualism, both species are getting some sort of benefit. Examples, lichen is actually a symbiotic relationship between a fungi and an algae. The algae gets a place to live with plenty of protection, and the fungi gets a food source because the algae is making its own food. So all of these are examples of mutualism. One of them has to benefit in some way, or both of them have to benefit in some way. Commensalism is the second type of relationship, and this one, it's not as common as we think. This is where one organism is benefiting. The other organism is not benefiting, but it also cannot be harmed. So in this picture, we have lichen growing on trees. The lichen simply grows on the tree. It is not taking anything from the tree. It is not giving anything to the tree. The tree gets nothing out of this relationship. Not good, not bad. The lichen is there using the tree as a place to live, but the tree, it doesn't matter. The last example the last type is parasitism. Parasitism is where one organism gets all of the benefits and the other is harmed. Now, for parasites, they don't usually kill the host. There are examples of parasites that will kill the host eventually, but they don't kill the host right away. If a tick killed its host every time it went to bite a dog, it'd be in constant search of a new dog. So they don't usually kill right away. This picture here is an example of a nest parasite. And what this bird does is it lays its egg in another bird's nest, and then it doesn't have to raise its own young. The other bird raises it, and usually to the detriment of the other birds in the nest. Okay, this is our foldable that we created based on ecological relationships. And it goes along with the PowerPoint that we just went through. The first one's going to be predation. And in predation, we have one organism that's happy and getting all the benefit, and then one that's dead. And so what you'll do is you'll fill this out, and then you'll write your notes under here for what is happening during predation. And you are going to get a page of pictures. You will decide what each picture is showing, and then you will glue them under your tab. Okay, so it's actually a beetle eating a worm, so just so you know. Then we have a competition. And in competition, see, we have our two frowny faces, and they're kind of angry because they're having to fight or compete for resources. And again, we're going to put our definition and then our two pictures. We have 10 pictures. There's going to be 2 for each. So you put your 2 pictures under there. And then the last type of relationship, I did this a little bit different. So symbiosis is actually the broad term that we use to describe parasitism, commensalism, and mutualism. So instead of making 3 tabs, we made 1 tab for symbiosis, and then we're going to divide that into 3 parts. So for parasitism, we have 1 happy and 1 sad because it's being harmed. And so we'll put our definition and our pictures under there. And then we have commensalism. 1 organism is helped, and then 1 is neutral. It doesn't care. It doesn't matter if the other organism's there or not. Like barnacles on a whale. A whale doesn't care. So there's our definition and our pictures. See the little cattle egrets? They don't actually help the cows in any way. They just catch the grasshoppers as they get stirred up by the cows. And our last one is mutualism. And this is where both organisms are benefiting. So they're both happy. And this is going to be a relationship like a bee and a flower. The bee pollinates the flower, and the flower gives the bee nectar. So they're both benefiting. Or in this picture, you have an alligator with a bird in its mouth. That's not actually eating the bird. The bird is perfectly safe because what the bird is doing is picking food out of their cleaning, basically, by picking food out of the alligator's mouth. And then the bird gets a meal, and the alligator gets a clean mouth.